From the creepy swamps deep in the heart of Cajun country, I welcome you to Fave Five From Fans, the podcast where I, Jamie Ray, your humble host, invite a friend of mine to create a list of 5 of their favorite things that we have a shared interest in, be it movies, books, TVs, toys, or really whatever. Next, we sit down to compare and contrast, dissect and disseminate our choices for you, the listening audience. We'll start off with honorable mentions, those selections that just didn't make the Fave 5, and then trade off our choices backwards from 5, 4, 3, 2, and finally number 1. All that's left is for you to decide who's right, who's wrong, and will we still be friends after all this? You may be asking yourself, hey, who is this guy? Well, I'm a dad, a husband, a son, and a brother, among other things. I'm into Star Trek, Rom the Space Knight, zombies, and cheese, though not necessarily in that order. I'm an avid fan of movies, all kinds of movies, but I'm especially rabid about horror films. I'm also a longtime Trekkie, still going strong. As a Trekkie, I made some close friends, and we travel all around to Star Trek conventions. That made for a lot of windshield time, and a lot of what's your favorite conversations. I hope that this podcast can capture some of that fan fervor we had, but this time with a different guest and a different topic each episode. We'll be discussing everything from alien invasions to zombie attacks, from war movies to musical numbers, Edgar Allan Poe to Stephen King, both literary and adaptations. I can't wait to get started, so please sit back, strap in, and get ready for this episode of Fave Five From Fans. Hello again, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today's episode is going to be Fave 5 action or sci-fi 70s TV episodes. Now, you're not going to get much more specific than that. But for my guest today, I wanted to make it as hard as I could, because we both love 70s TV, and we can talk about the same series, but this way we've got the favorite episodes. And speaking of my guest, I'd like you to welcome Patrick Sean Bennett. Hey, Pat.
Hey.
How's it going, sir?
Going pretty good.
Thank you for making the trip down I-10.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
This is going to be fun. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right, Jamie. Well, as you know, I'm a former astronaut and Navy SEAL. Just kidding. I'm actually an independent filmmaker, and I'm the director of the Lake Charles Film Festival over in Lake Charles. Also love cliffhanger serials.
Yes.
And because of that, I put on another festival called the Calcasieu Serial Fest, where we just feature these old serial chapters.
Right.
I'm also into classic muscle cars, 70s and 80s rock, and I'm a root beer fanatic.
It's something I just learned today.
Okay. Hey, one thing I want to ask you, Jamie. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Ooh, that's going to be a tough one.
Something I like to ask everybody.
Yeah, it changes a little bit. When you say favorite movie, it's like, is that the movie that for whatever reason affected me the most, or is the movie that I want to rewatch the most? So it's tough to say, but lately, I don't know, probably the last 10 years or so, it's been Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead.
Before that, it would have been Purple Rain.
Purple Rain.
I had a thing where every time I got a new piece of electronics, whether it be a CD player or VHS player, the first thing I would do would be to play Purple Rain on it. And I still do that. But now I like to watch Shaun of the Dead probably more often.
Cool. It's a funny movie.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie?
Well, mine has always been Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Dun, 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 dun.
Big Indiana Jones fan.
Yeah, that's a great one.
And it's almost a tie, though, because I also like Empire Strikes Back. So those two right there are probably my favorite.
I would easily pick Empire Strikes Back over Raiders. Nothing wrong. They're both incredible movies, but I got to go with Star Wars.
Well, other than that, I'm still crazy about Evel Knievel, Mid-South Wrestling, and Max Headroom.
Max Headroom.
Yeah. But that's enough about me. Let's get on with the show here.
All right. Well, great. Well, for new listeners, we're going to name a couple of honorable mentions, and those are going to be episodes that were so good, but were so hard to not make the list. And then we'll trade off going back and forth from 5, 4, 3, 2 down to our number ones. So sit down, strap in. Patrick, take it away. What's your honorable mention?
Okay, I've got a couple of them, Jamie. My first one it was only one season, but it ran from 75 to 76, and it was The Invisible Man.
The Invisible Man.
Okay, that starred David McCallum. You might remember him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was on, what was the one with Napoleon Solo,
The Man from U.N.C.L.E.
Man from U.N.C.L.E., yeah, he was the Russian. He played Dr. Daniel Weston.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is, it was based off of the H.G. Wells Invisible Man novel.
Right.
But they changed it up. They modernized it. He was a scientist. He gets zapped by this ray that basically turns him invisible. And he stays invisible permanently, but he has to wear like prosthetic makeup and stuff to make it look like he has skin.
Oh, okay.
So it basically turns into like a thin rubber mask and rubber gloves that looks like skin.
Gotcha.
And it's painted up to look like, flesh tones and stuff. So he can throw on a trench coat over that, and if he wants to disappear, he just pulls the mask and gloves off and strips down, and he's invisible.
He's invisible but naked.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, but it was a fun series. But anyway, my favorite episode, I think that's what you're wanting to get at. Is
Yes,
what
sir.
Was your favorite episode from the series?
Mm-hmm.
There was one that co-starred as the villain was John Vernon.
Oh, yeah.
You might remember him as was Dean Wormer on Animal House.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, he played this psychic. He was like a renowned psychic, and he would invite people to his mansion, and they would do a seance, and he would contact their deceased loved ones.
Ah.
And his clientele was like senators and generals and stuff, and he was basically getting them to tell secrets and stuff, and selling secrets, or he getting them to pay him millions of dollars to find out something from their loved ones. So the organization that the Invisible Man works for now, the government organization, they want to send him in as an agent to try to foil this guy and uncover that he's a fraud and send him to prison. Well, the Invisible Man always worked with his wife. They were both agents.
Okay, but she's not invisible.
She's not.
Okay.
But they work together as a team out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
So what they do is the woman gets an appointment with this psychic, and she goes to him, but the husband, the Invisible Man, goes in invisible.
And naked.
Yeah. And so this she claims to have psychic abilities and stuff, telekinetic powers. So the psychic wants her to prove herself.
Uh-huh.
So, basically she says, okay, look at this chair. I'm going to make it float across the room. And the Invisible Man basically picks up the chair and just moves it,
Right.
So it looks like has all these powers, okay? So she convinces them and stuff. But anyway, it was just fun to watch because they're all like, wow, she really has these powers, because they're all frauds.
Right.
And here they found someone who can really do stuff, So she'll make chairs fly across the room, smash into the wall, or make a vase float across the room, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then the Invisible Man can also start talking, and
spirits from beyond.
So she can call spirits from beyond of a loved one or something, and he'll talk and stuff and shake the table, and so she's really freaking these people out. But it was a fun episode to watch.
Right.
So,
that's a cool episode. Yeah. Anytime I think of that, I always think of, I think it was called Gemini Man.
Right.
And that guy wore like a wristwatch that would turn him invisible, right?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. So
now, since you brought up Gemini Man, the Invisible Man was getting so expensive to make because they had to, pull off the mask and the gloves and do all these special effects to make him invisible. So they canceled the series, but wrote the Gemini Man to replace it.
No way.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
It was easier because he didn't have to peel off this stuff on a green screen or whatever they use,
Right.
He just pushes a button and he fades away. So,
yeah, okay.
So it was a lot cheaper to make, and the same fan base liked it because it was another Invisible Man.
Yeah.
And it was the same premise. He was a secret agent.
Never knew that. Yeah.
So anyway, that was my first honorable mention.
All right. Well, let's hear your number 2. Okay,
my next one was The Bionic Woman from 76 to 78.
Oh, classic.
And as you know, that starred Lindsay Wagner as Jamie Summers and Richard Anderson as Oscar Goldman.
Right.
And this was a spin-off series, kind of a companion series to $6 Million Man. In fact, Oscar Goldman tied the two series together.
Right, and Rudy.
And Rudy, the doctor. Mm-hmm. Rudy Wells. My episode from that series is it was from season 3, called Motorcycle Boogie.
Oh, well, I know right now why you like that episode.
Where am I going?
Evil Knievel jumps the Berlin Wall.
That's it.
That's a great one.
Yeah, so while she was on the mission to West Germany, she's got to cross over to East Germany, and they had to get help from Evil Knievel, who actually played himself.
Exactly. That was a great episode.
And this was kind of the height of Evil's career,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it did him good for his fans, and it did the show good having him on there.
That actually was on my original long list.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was. I loved that episode.
Yeah. And as I said earlier, I'm a huge Evel Knievel fan. I collect stuff from Evel Knievel.
Mm-hmm.
And as a kid, man, that was my superhero right there, was Evel Knievel.
Well, yeah, man.
Because he wore a cape and he could fly through the air, you know?
And he was indestructible.
He was. But,
that's a great episode. I remember that jump, too.
That's my two honorable mentions.
That's awesome. Well, for mine, I'm going to start off with the pilot episode from 1975's SWAT.
Loved it.
Yes, it was called The Killing Ground. And I don't know if you remember this one, but it was actually the one where, of course, Robert Urich is playing an officer, Jim Street.
For hire.
Mm-hmm. And he is on a call with his partner to a domestic disturbance. And as they pull up, they don't know it, but it's a fake call, and they're going to be ambushed. And so there's snipers that shoot at them, and his partner ends up dying. Well, SWAT is being put together, and so they, Steve Forrest, Lieutenant Hondo, and Rod Perry as Sergeant Deacon, both are working this case, and Robert Urich is trying out with him. And so I just really love this episode because just the music and the fact that, man, these were the coolest guys. I mean, they had the cool weapons, the nice van, they had the blue jumpsuits. I'll tell you, I enjoyed that show so much that little 6-year-old me ended up getting a SWAT outfit, a real one made, because my grandfather was a police officer at the time, and he got me some little patches and everything, and I've got this awesome picture with me with my plastic M16, exactly, at Kmart. So that was a great one. And I do want to mention that Jeffrey Lewis was one of the three. It was basically three cousins, or two brothers and a cousin, who felt that the father/uncle had been unjustly killed by the police. So they're going around and killing police kind of as a revenge plot. But Jeffrey Lewis is from Any Which Way But Loose and Salem's Lot. And he was a great, great character actor. And of course, the show ends up with them finally getting on top, you know, and they capture, I think they kill one and maybe capture two. And of course, Robert Urich makes it to the team. So that's going to be my number 2 honorable mention will be SWAT, The Killing Ground. So honorable mention 1, this was a tough spot to find because there were several other shows that I wanted to get on here. But just the sheer laughter that I get out of rewatching this episode, it's going to be The $6 Million Man, Season 1, Episode 11, Burning Bright, with William Shatner. Do you remember this one?
Yes, I do.
The Shat. He plays an astronaut, Josh Taylor, whose mind has been affected by like an electrical field when he was in outer space. And as he comes down, he's really kind of acting weird. So Steve, another fellow astronaut, goes and tries to work with him. Well, he's going crazy. He thinks he's going crazy. So his mind is actually changing. And so he's developing powers. And at one point he calls Steve down to like an oceanside park. And he's actually telepathically speaking to a dolphin. And he goes a little crazy and goes up on a tower, electrical tower, and he's calling out to somebody named Andy. And they're trying to they get him down, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to take you to a facility. And he gets away, and he goes down to Texas, where he accidentally kills a deputy. But it's because his powers are growing and growing and growing. But there's this whole Rocket Man type performance where he gets back up on an electrical tower and is seeing, I can taste colors and stuff like this. And Steve goes up to try to save him.
I'm burning right now, Steve! Looking at the sun as an origin of a four-dimensional coordinate system, where position, which is represented parametrically, is plotted against an orthogonal time axis, is given by x1 equals a cosine omega t.
And he actually falls off and dies. And at the end, they have to end up giving him an astronaut's funeral. So it's kind of sad, but just the performance that Shatner puts in this, I loved it, So I went back and rewatched it to make sure I wasn't thinking things up, and it's not. It was 100% Shatner. So that's going to be my 2 honorable mentions. If you're ready, let's go with your number 5.
All right, Jamie. My number 5 would be from Wonder Woman, which aired from 75 to 79, starring Linda Carter and Lyle Wagner.
Be still my beating heart.
Yeah. Okay, Wonder Woman, the strange thing about that series is the first season aired on ABC, and it was set during World War II.
Right. But
then it was pretty much canceled, but then CBS picked it up, and they rewrote it and made it set in modern, the 70s.
Right.
And it aired for 2 seasons on CBS, so that's kind of weird,
Yeah, plus the fact that Lyle Wagner still plays Steve Trevor,
exactly.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, no, I remember that.
So that was kind of strange. But anyway, I have a 2-part episode from season 1, and it was called the Feminism Mystique.
The Feminine Mystique. I remember this one, yes.
And this had Wonder Woman's sister, Drusilla, was played by Deborah Winger. Man, I was in love.
Yep.
Yeah, well, anyway, in the episode, Drusilla is sent from Paradise Island to come and bring Diana home because they need her on the island for something.
Right.
But she gets kidnapped by the Nazis.
Uh-huh.
And while they're interrogating her and torturing her and all that, she reveals where Paradise Island's at.
Oh, no.
So the Nazis are planning an invasion on Paradise Island.
Uh-huh.
Dude, how sweet is that?
I know, man.
Yeah. Anyway, the second part is Wonder Woman has to return home to Paradise Island, save her sister, save the island, defeat the Nazis.
Right.
But it's just the story.
That's a great
that is
one.
Awesome.
Oh yeah. That was actually on my short list too. That was one of my favorites, especially with the scene with her and Deborah Winger running as Wonder Girl and Wonder Woman running next to each other. That was a great 2-parter.
That was my girlfriend. She didn't know it, but she was my girlfriend for the longest time. Both of them, actually.
I was going to say, which one? Because I was dating Linda Carter at the time.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Well, let's continue the superhero theme with my number 5, which is The Incredible Hulk.
Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, searching for a way to tap into the hidden strengths that all humans have. Then an accidental overdose of gamma radiation alters his body chemistry. And now when David Banner grows angry or outraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs.
Sweet, I got that on my next one.
All right, well, let's see. Mine comes from season 4, episode, depending on who you ask, 12 or 13. It was the episode, the first, part 2.
That's mine. So we
Get out.
Let's talk about it together, man.
What a great episode!
Yes.
You know, 2 Hulks fighting it out. You know, so we actually met and had lunch before we came in here, and I almost let it slip because they had the Swamp Thing pop up on the sign. But that I had been researching Dick Durock.
Sure, Swamp Thing. Yeah.
That's it. And he was the Swamp Thing. And he was the bare knuckle fighter from Any Which Way But Loose. Yeah. And, oh, man, he made such a cool Hulk. And he had those big teeth and the hair, which was like, oh, man, the higher the hair, the closer to God, because it was up there. So why don't you tell us what the episode was about?
Well, Banner hears about this other Hulk creature, and he tracks it down. Follows the leads, you know.
Right.
And comes to this small town and finds out that there was a lab where this other Hulk was made. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And while he's there, this older man witnesses Banner transforming.
Right.
So he kind of befriends him and tells him he can cure him. So, but during all that, this other guy, I think, wasn't he a janitor?
Yes.
Yeah, he's actually the older Hulk and uses instead of the cure, he becomes the Hulk again.
Right.
But he was like a murdering Hulk. He killed people. So he and Banner had to fight. The 2 Hulks had to fight. Yeah. To the death, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple of little things that I really enjoyed about this episode. So first of all, the original Doctor. His name was Dr. Clive.
Right.
You know, which is...
Ties to the Frankenstein.
Ties to the Frankenstein, exactly. And then the guy who turns into the Hulk, his name is Del Fry, which is a straight connection to Dwight Fry from I think it's House of Frankenstein, but he played Renfield in the original Dracula. So all of these cool little things to tie it back into that story. And of course, like we were saying, the other Hulk is portrayed by a guy who's actually, I think, 3 or 4 inches taller than Lou Ferrigno.
And very skinny.
Yes. So when they're head to head, he's almost towering over him. So right away, you feel like he's going to be the stronger Hulk. But in the end, when they have the battle, and he's almost beat the Hulk, the cops show up. The sheriff, who was played by Billy Bush, who was the dad from Critters. Okay. He's the sheriff. He shows up and shoots the bad Hulk 3 times, and he's dead. And I was like, wait a minute.
Not much of a Hulk.
No, he's not much of a Hulk. And then goes to shoot our Hulk, and the lady who was the love interest of Del steps in between them because the Hulk had saved her earlier. That's so funny because that was, of all the episodes, that has got to be my favorite too.
Yeah, mine too. I think it's because this was the only episodes that had like a super villain. You know?
Right.
Everybody else that the Hulk came up across was like a drug dealer or
mob boss,
a bully, or something like that, a kidnapper.
Yeah, somebody who put cilantro in a meal.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I agree because I remember watching it going, "Oh wow, 2 Hulks!" You know. Yeah. Oh, you know my love of that show. You know, I met Lou Ferrigno once when I was I don't know, 20 years ago. It was like I was a schoolgirl. I was so excited. Did the Hulk pose and everything. You know.
Talking about Dick Durock, who played the evil Hulk. I met him in Houston one time. He's passed away now, but pretty cool guy. He was a Hollywood stuntman for many years. In fact, I catch him all the time watching the A-Team, Knight Rider, usually in a bar. He's somebody there.
He's such a big guy.
And I remember seeing him on, Stand By Me.
Right. He was the pie eating contest.
Yeah, he's the one that the kid throws up on.
Right.
The lumberjack guy. Yeah, but he's been in tons of stuff.
Yeah.
You'll see him all the time.
And just don't know it. That's the original Hulk.
Not only did he play in the first Swamp Thing, he played in the sequel, and then he played in the series.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
that's awesome.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's a great one. The Incredible Hulk, the first. So let's go, I guess, to your number 4. Or which one was the Hulk for you?
4.
4, okay. So then I'll jump back to my number 4.
Okay.
And my number 4 comes from the 1974 series Kolchak, the Night Stalker. This was episode 11 called Horror in the Heights. So I don't know, were you a big fan of that show?
I was.
Yeah. So this is the one, and of course you just loved Darren McGavin's voiceovers, and you know, at the beginning and the intro, and he weaves the story. And so the first thing we see is Phil Silvers, which, you know, legendary comedian, coming to a card game, and he's there with some other Jewish older men. And one of them kind of comes out, and he ends up seeing his rabbi. And he's like, "Oh, Rabbi, you know, what are you doing here? You know, this is just a penny ante game. Don't worry, I'm being good though." And all of a sudden, the rabbi turns into a monster and kills him. And so he comes down. Carl comes down to investigate this murder, and then there's rapidly becomes other murders. It's in a place called Roosevelt Heights. He discovers that it's a legendary Hindu monster called the Rakshasa.
I like that name.
Yeah, that was a cool name. It was actually a cool looking monster too. Kind of reminded me of the monster, the gremlin from the Twilight Zone old episode. So then 2 people, an older Jewish couple, they both see a police officer. And so as the watcher, we're starting to understand they see somebody that they trust. And sure enough, Carl goes and finds basically an Indian restaurant, and there's a man with swastikas all over the back of the place. And you're thinking, wow, you know, what are all the swastikas? Well, of course, it used to be an old Hindu symbol, or still is a Hindu symbol. Nazis just ended up taking it and converting it into something horrible. But we then see 2 police officers later on. One sees the monster as his mother, while the other sees it as a sergeant. So in the end, Carl ends up taking a crossbow from the Hindu man, and he sees Miss Emily, the sweet old lady from the office, which blows Carl's mind because he doesn't trust anybody. And so he sees Miss Emily, and she's talking to him, and he keeps telling her to stop. And he ends up shooting her with the crossbow, and sure enough, it's the monster. So I just always loved the performances in this one. And there's been some great Night Stalker episodes, don't get me wrong. Vampire's one of them, Mr. Ring. But this is always going to be my favorite. So, all right. Well, let's go to your number 3.
All right, Jamie. My number 3 is from Buck Rogers in the 25th Century.
Okay.
And that ran from 79 to 81, and it starred Gil Gerard as Buck.
Right.
Aaron Gray as Colonel Wilma Deering.
Oh, so Deering.
And little Felix Sela, or Sila, how you say it? Is it Sela?
Sela, I think.
Who played Tweaky.
Bitty.
What's up, Buck? He also played on Addams Family.
Right, Cousin It. So, but we also have to say
Mel Blanc.
Exactly, did the voice.
Okay. All right, and this is actually the season 2 opener. It was a 2-parter.
Uh-huh.
Called Time of the Hawk.
Time of the Hawk. I know it.
Yeah, and Hawk was such a great character they introduced.
He was.
And it kind of changed the dynamics of the show. Mm-hmm. Gave Buck a male battle buddy, you know?
Right.
So to me, it got more interesting when they added Hawk to the series. Anyway, Hawk was this, he was kind of a half human, half bird man.
Right. Okay.
But he had the mannerism. He would turn his head real quick like a bird.
Mm-hmm. And he had that leather outfit on.
Yeah, awesome costume.
The gloves. Oh, yeah.
But what Hawk, these marauders killed all of Hawk's people, including his wife. Mm-hmm. And Hawk blames all humans. Right. And he vows to destroy the whole human race, you know. And Buck kind of trying to persuade him into to realizing that not all humans are bad. Mm-hmm. But he has a hard time at that. But I forgot exactly what happened that turned the tides. I think, didn't Buck save his life or something?
Honestly, I don't remember. All I can remember, or the number one thing I remember from that episode, is that Hawk's ship had clawed feet.
Yes. He could grab another ship.
Yes. And he goes through somebody's canopy. And was it Wilma that he punctures?
Yeah, gets him in the shoulder or something.
We're putting this together with a different episode.
Maybe so.
It was when his, I think his wife wasn't dead yet.
Well, okay, that was the two-parter.
Yes, because the Talon goes through her shoulder.
Yeah.
And Buck helps save her. And that's when Hawk realizes that not all humans are bad.
Right. But Hawk, man, it piqued my interest in the series. I was kind of losing interest, you know. But I think they saved the show by adding this character. Right.
They got a whole nother season out. And didn't they end up bringing the new ship, the Searcher or something like that in?
Yeah.
So they really did change the whole thing up.
They got him off of Earth and into space. Kind of more of a Star Trek type series.
Right.
But that's definitely one of my favorite episodes.
That's a great episode. Well, all right. Well,
what's yours?
My number 3 is going to be from the 1976 The Bionic Woman, and my choice is going to be from season 2. It's episode 5, Kill Oscar, Part 3. So, if you remember, there was a Kill Oscar Part 1 where John Houseman played Dr. Franklin, who was a previous scientist over at OSI. And so he develops what he calls fembots. And they are just like from the 6 Minute Exact, or that's where they got them from. Yeah. But just like from season 1 from the Robot Maker, they looked and act just like people. But this time he starts off with women, and so they end up replacing Oscar's secretary, and then they replace. Then they replace Oscar, and so the whole point is for Dr. Franklin to get the weather machine. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that leads into part 2 that showed up on the $6 Million Man that week. And of course, Kill Oscar Part 2. So at the end, Jamie had gotten beaten up or she jumped out of a building and tried to escape a bunch of the fembots. So she's going through all of this stuff. And Dr. Franklin sets up on a small island off of Cuba. And he's got this weather machine now that he's been forced to, so he can make hurricanes and tornadoes and everything. So it's all about Steve and Jamie have to get there. So episode 3 is my favorite for a bunch of different reasons. So you've got both, of course, you've got the porn stash, first of all, on Steve Austin, which we got to forgive him for that. But Jamie, Lindsay Wagner, she's on top of her game here. So they end up having to take an atomic submarine that Admiral Richter, who was the captain to Oscar Goldman's XO back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, played by Sam Jaffe. I don't know if you remember him. He was the professor on The Day the Earth Stood Still. It was my father's favorite sci-fi movie of all time. But so they take the atomic submarine Stingray, which at one point is the US 501. And then later on in another room, it's the 509. And then you go back to the other room and it's the 501. A little continuity issue here, but that was just, I thought that jumped out at me. So they end up, Steve and Jamie end up in torpedo tubes and get shot out and come out, and they go and do whatever they can do to save the day. There's a big fight between some of the fembots and a couple of the guy bots. Or was that man bots? I don't know. And, of course, they end up saving the day as always. So I just really like the fact that we got to see both of them at full power fighting equally powerful adversaries.
Right.
You know, I thought it was great. This was actually the last time that you would see Steve Austin on the Bionic Woman show. Of course, you would still see, Oscar back and forth, but they didn't appear. I think this was season 5 of The $6 Million Man. That's where it ended anyway. So you didn't see him again.
Until the Bionic Ever After.
Exactly. Until Bionically Ever After.
Marriage episode.
Exactly. So I ended up rewatching this episode last night just to kind of refresh myself. And the funniest thing, when the episode first starts, they're at the OSI compound and Jamie's, back to full power and they're trying to get out of there. There's a news report about the weather and how no one can explain what's going on. And I realized that news announcer is one of the news announcers from Kentucky Fried Movie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you've seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm listening to that voice, and I turn around and look at him, and it's him. I was like, oh, that's good. And I tried to find his name, and I couldn't find his name, but you would recognize him if you go back and see that episode. So that was it. That's my number 3, Bionic Woman, Kill Oscar Part 3. Let's bat it over to you. What's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 is from Battlestar Galactica.
How did I know you'd have a Battlestar Galactica on your list?
Which ran from 78 to 79. And actually, this is the pilot episode.
Oh, okay.
Which was a 3-parter.
Right.
And, man, this is... Well, I was going to say it's so cinematic. Well, the producers thought that, too, because they actually said, you know what? We're going to air this theatrically.
Right.
And then start the series.
I remember that.
So, yeah, it came out at the theaters first, and then, like, the next month or something, the series started.
Same thing with Buck Rogers.
Right.
They had a movie first.
Right. This pilot movie was huge, man.
Mm-hmm.
Just had so much going on. And if you never watched the original Battlestar Galactica, it's a lot different than the remake.
Right.
And the characters, you still have the same characters. Adama was played by Lauren Green.
Mm-hmm.
You had Apollo was played by Richard Hatch.
Right.
And then, of course, Starbuck was...
Face Man.
What's his name?
Dirk Benedict.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So basically...
and don't forget Jane Seymour was in the first one, too.
Yes, she was. She was Boxy's mom.
Yep.
And Apollo's love interest until she gets zapped. By the Cylons. Well, the premise of the whole story is that the Cylon race, they have these robots as their soldiers. Mm-hmm. And they attack this planet that everybody's living on and... destroy most of it, kill most of the people. So there's these giant, kind of like aircraft carriers called Battlestars. They defend them, they chase off the Cylons, but in the battle, there's only one Battlestar left, and it's called the Galactica.
Right.
So they know the Cylons will return to finish off the whole race. So they load everybody up on the Galactica, and they find any ship that can fly. Mm-hmm. I mean, anything that can fly.
Anything, literally.
Like junk ships. And they load every last survivor on these ships, and they head for the stars.
Right.
And they're searching for an old planet.
A legend.
From a legendary planet from their race's history that some of their ancestors came from, and it was called Earth. So
yes.
They're actually looking for us. And anyway, the movie's about the Cylons do return, and they try to track the Galactica to kill everyone. They want to wipe out the race. And it's just that story.
Right.
And dude, this was epic. The ships were incredible. The Galactica itself.
The fighters, the Vipers.
The helmets,
Everything. The
Everything
jacket.
about
Man,
it,
those
yeah.
jackets
The
with those
pistols.
gold clips. Oh,
yeah.
man.
And I remember when I was a kid in Starlog.
Exactly. I was just thinking
There's
that.
an ad where you could order one of those.
It's got a picture of the whole family wearing a
Yeah,
jacket.
yeah.
The girl and the boy, the mom and the dad.
Yes. And I wanted one so bad. I never had one.
Yeah.
I do have a replica of the pistol, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, very cool.
So, was the Imperious leader in this episode of the Cylons the guy with the...
Yes.
You know who played him?
Who was that?
Dirk Durock.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really?
I remember reading that
not know
yesterday.
that.
He was the Imperious
Did not know
leader.
that.
Yep.
And, of course,
By
Baltar.
your command, Imperious leader. So how many times did you go behind a fan at home and do
all
that?
the time, yeah.
All the time.
Yeah. But anyways, incredible 3-part pilot episode.
Yes, it was. That was a great one. Well, I'm also going to the 25th century for my number 2 choice.
Uh-oh.
Another Buck Rogers episode, but mine is from season 1, episode 14.
Gary Coleman.
No, Space Vampire.
Oh, yeah, Space Vampire.
Oh, my God. I love this episode so much.
Of a Nosferatu guy in space.
Even as a 9 or 10 year, I think this actually came out in it was released in January of 1980.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm still counting it.
Yeah, it originated in the 70s.
Yeah. But even at 10 years old, I could tell that Wilma Deering was hot.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, basically, Wilma and Buck and Twiggy are going to Theta Station, which is kind of like a repair station to have Twiggy's discs or something redone. And while they're there, a spaceship crashes into the station. And inside, they find everyone who they think at first is dead, but later figure out that they're actually sick. And as they're trying to check it out, Wilma feels this presence around her. And you end up seeing this little red squiggly thing floating out of the ship and hovering over everybody. And instantly I thought Day of the Dove from Star Trek. So then it goes away, and then they start investigating. First of all, what I thought was really cool is the ship is called the IS Demeter. If you've ever read Dracula, that was the name of the ship that brings Dracula over to London. There's a guy who had a robot who is dead on the ship, and his name is like Helsing or Hellson, which is obviously a play on Helsing. And there was just all of these little things that made you reference it back and forth. So it ended up the vampire is named a Vorvon, and it's played by a guy named Nicholas Horman, who, little side note, was in one of my favorite Michael Caine movies of all time, The Hand, where he's an artist that gets his hand severed, and it makes its way back to him, killing people along the way. But this was the strangest looking vampire. I don't know if you remember, but it had that huge forehead and these really long, pointy ears. And he had fangs, which, okay, he's a vampire, except he doesn't bite you. He does this weird little hook 'em horns, like a hang 10 thing with his thumb and pinky, and puts it on your throat and sucks the energy out of you. And he sees Wilma, and he's like, I've got to have that. Mm-hmm. So while everybody is thinking, since the station is contaminated, and they think Buck is kind of going crazy, Buck ends up finding, I think it was called a power cube or a power something, and it's a little amulet, which is basically like a cross. So that whenever he sees the Vorvon and touches him with it, it's like it burns him, just like a cross would do a regular vampire. Side note, that was Adama's medallion that he wore from Battlestar Galactica. Yeah. So they end up finally, Wilma's under the Vorvon's power, and oh my God. I was watching it again earlier this week, and her whole voice changes and her mannerisms, and it's probably the finest episode I'd seen of her, because she plays, she's Wilma Deering at first, the hot, heavy, strong woman, and then she feels this presence, so she's really scared, and now she's like a vampire, and she's really powerful. And of course, in the end, they end up flying into a sun, and Wilma escapes. And the Vorvon's gone. But anyway, that was my favorite episode of all time, the Space Vampire from 1980.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. All right, so we have made it to the number 1 episode. So lay your number 1 on us.
All right. my favorite TV series from the 70s was The $6 Million Man.
Looks good at S1. Roger. BCS arm switch is on. Okay, Victor. Landing rocket arm switch is on. Here comes the throttle. Circuit breaker's in. We have separation. Roger. Inboard and outboards are on. We're coming forward with the side stick. All looks good. Roger. I've got a blowout. Amber 3. Get your pitch to 0. Pitch is out. I can't hold altitude. Correction. Alpha hold is off. Trip selector's emergency. Flight comm. I can't hold it. She's breaking up. She's breaking.
Steve Austin, astronaut. A man barely alive.
We can rebuild him. We have the technology. We can make him better than he was. Better, stronger, faster.
And you already know what my favorite episodes were.
Pretty sure we're going to name the same episode.
Probably not.
Okay.
I don't know. Because I'm also a big fan of Boggy Creek and Bigfoot. All that kind of stuff. So my favorite, it was a two-parter. It was The Secret of Bigfoot.
Number 1, The Secret of Bigfoot.
Kidding me. All right.
I'm dead serious, man.
Sweet.
Such
great minds think alike.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah. So, but
February 1st, 1976.
Like this was the best series?
This was the best series. I think so.
What I liked about $6 Million Man was you never knew what you were going to get each week.
Right.
You could be underwater in a submarine. The next week you're out in space in a rocket.
Or you're underwater fighting sharks.
Yeah, shark.
Or he's flying a Thunderbird.
Yes. You know? Or you could be riding horseback somewhere or in a third world country fighting in a war. It was so amazing.
Yeah. Or you're fighting a guy who's got 2 bionic arms instead of 1. Whose name, for some reason, changes from episode to episode. Yeah. No, you're right. This was hands down the best episode of the entire series.
And Bigfoot was played by Andre the Giant. Mm-hmm. If you know wrestling, I mentioned in my opening biography here that I still love Mid-South wrestling. Well, I remember seeing Andre live at the Lake Charles Civic Center.
No way. Yeah. He's a big dude.
It was. I want to say it was like around 81 or 82 or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw him. Some drunk in the audience was heckling him. No. So he called him in, and they start fighting, and Andre just pounced that guy. Yeah.
I wouldn't mess with that man if I was stone cold sober.
You know it was all staged. But still, man, it was awesome to see it. But anyway, of course, $6 Million Man stars Lee Majors, Colonel Steve Austin, Richard Anderson as Oscar Goldman. And this was from season 4. Now, this wasn't the 3. Yeah. This wasn't the only time Bigfoot was featured.
No, he comes back like
show.
3 more times.
Yeah, and then a different actor plays him later on. It's the guy from Lurch from was it Cassidy? I want to say David Cassidy, but that's the same.
No,
something Cassidy.
Yeah, I keep thinking Carl Stricken, but that's Lurch from the movies.
Yeah, Lurch from the Addams Family TV series.
Right.
Well, since we're both on this, you want to just go ahead and tell what happened?
Sure. So basically, Steve and Oscar go out to the California forest because there's a group setting up a series of earthquake detection devices, and during this, a couple of the scientists go out and they're planting their sensors, and something appears and takes them away. So Steve is going to go out and investigate it. And lo and behold, it's Bigfoot. And so he and Steve get into a fight. And I will remember this for the rest of my life. Steve pulls his arm off, and he's bionic. And I remember that.
Your jaw just drop open.
Just so dropped.
I mean, it was already mega cool having Bigfoot, but then when Bigfoot's a robot.
And I can remember right before then, I think he snaps off a tree or something and goes to hit Steve with it. And I'm like, God, this thing's so powerful. And then he's a freaking robot, Oh, cool. And so he runs off into the cave. Remember the cave? And Steve shows up, and he doesn't know where he's gone and realizes he's behind a fake wall breaks through that wall, gets through the door, and then goes to that creepy tunnel. I mean, I don't know how they did that tunnel, but you had the marble down that he would walk on, and then the whole cylinder would revolve around him and knocks him out, basically. And when he wakes up, all these people are standing around him. And you've got people like Stephanie Powers. And then Charles Cypher was one of the aliens, too, which he's from The Fog and from a couple of John Carpenter movies. He's always been a favorite of mine. Then as the back and forth goes, you find out that they're aliens and that Bigfoot is their protector, and they're there to study the Earth. And all of this earthquake monitoring devices have inadvertently tapped into what they're doing. So they're trying to figure out how to coat what they're doing so people can't see it anymore. Well, at the same time, now that the OSI's got the monitors up, they realize that there's an imminent quake coming.
A major
earthquake. I think they actually call it cataclysmic. And what's going to happen, you know? And then Steve is like, she keeps asking him questions, and then she's got this weird truth detector that tells when he's lying. And she's like, well, if you'll tell me everything you want, when I come back, you can ask me any question you want, and I'll tell you the truth. And he's kind of like, well, why would you do that? Oh, because you're never leaving here. Mm-hmm. And then the episode ends, you know? It was just so awesome. I mean, you know, there's aliens in the show, but aliens and Bigfoot, you know, it's so great. And then episode 2, why don't you break episode 2 down for us?
Well, let's see. Okay, this giant earthquake, I think OSI figures out that they can detonate a nuclear
bomb. Oh, yeah, because that's the first choice to do. You set off a minor quake first with a nuclear bomb.
And that's going to counteract the damages from the major earthquake. But
I think the actual word was, that might just work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, Steve's got to convince everybody that, you know, they got to get out before this bomb goes off or whatever, because it's going to wipe out everything. I know Oscar doesn't want to set off the bomb because Steve's missing, and they know it's going to kill him. So he's got to make that tough decision to go ahead and shut it down.
And so and then afterwards, they actually team up together.
Yeah, Bigfoot and $6 Million Man team up.
And so they're finally able to get out, and he gets to Oscar, and they're able to stop it. And
just in the nick of time.
Just in the nick of time. And the aliens are able to fade off, and that's it. You think you're never going to see this bionic, the bionic Bigfoot again. But just wait. I actually think there's 5 episodes that have Bigfoot, because I think the last appearance was called Bigfoot 5. And I think somebody's using him to rob a bank or something. It was crazy. But, great minds think alike, my friend.
And not only was this the greatest TV series of the 70s, but the greatest toy line, maybe?
Oh, what?
They had so much.
So many toys. And as a kid, I had some of them. And I actually had the greatest life learning experience thanks to the mission control vehicle from the $6 Million Man line. So I think that toy came out in 76, maybe 77. If you remember it, you could put Steve in it, and you could fly him around with a handle,
right?
And then you would do something, and the hook would come down, right? So I get that toy. Santa's brought it to me. Santa's hooked me up, and I'm so excited. And my dad is like, hey, wait, let's read the instructions. No, I've seen this on TV. He's like, well, no, I know just what it does. Watch. And I grab that hook and I pull it. And all you can hear is plastic snapping. And that's it. I've broken the toy. It never worked right again. So I learned to always read the instructions. But there were so many cool toys. Even weird toys like Oscar Goldman's office.
Yeah.
What was your favorite toy?
I don't know. I always wanted the Oscar Goldman. I already had Steve and, some of the vehicles and that. But I always wanted Oscar Goldman. I finally got it for my birthday. Okay? And the reason I wanted it was because of that briefcase.
I know.
The exploding briefcase. But I remember taking it to school, and we had a substitute teacher. She wore glasses, and I brought it up to show her. And while she was looking down at it, I made that thing pop off, and it hit her right in the glasses.
Oh, no.
And she got so mad. Well, she confiscated my exploding briefcase, put it in the drawer, and had wait, to after class. I got it back.
Thank God.
Yeah, but I always like that briefcase. And I like how,
cool.
you can turn it one way and it opens its
just
regular.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah, and then you turn it the other way and everything inside is exploded.
Yeah. Well, I ended up having to get rid of those toys when I was a kid, but as a grown-up, I've bought them back slowly.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the hardest things to get isn't the briefcase, but Oscar's headset.
Right.
And that's so I ended up finally finding one because me, I use the Chuck Swallow method of eBay. I have a certain amount I'm going to pay, and I'm not going to pay more than that. And one day I ended up getting it. So those were. And you could look through the back of Steve's head and it looked like you were. And of course, you could make the noise yourself.
Also, like they sold like a pack of arms. I think it was like the Mission
Critical arms and legs.
And legs.
Yeah.
And I like the one that had the gas mask.
I have one of those. I'm not sure, but another one was, I think you could plug it in and it was a gun or a flashlight or something. Of course, it didn't light up.
Of course, there was a Maskatron,
which is weird because they didn't call him
that.
Maskatron, yeah. But then they came out with the Fembot, and they called it the Fembot for the Bionic Woman series.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that was great because you got Oscar's face, Steve's face, and I think it was the John Saxon face.
Right, it was.
Yeah, that was great. So, did you ever read the comics that Kevin Smith did?
Yes, I did.
Man.
Yeah, Bigfoot and that.
Yes, he did. And Max.
Yeah.
That was a great series. And then I think not too long ago, a few years ago, they came out with $6 Million Man Season 6 as a comic.
Right. And they also did the Bionic Woman comics.
Both, and then they crossed over at one point, I think. Great series. Well, man, this was it's a good choice on your part. Shows a lot of intelligence.
This is pretty awesome.
Yeah. So this has been a lot of fun. I'm so glad that you came and decided to sit in with me. I knew it was going to be great because anybody likes 70s sci-fi and actions, it would be you. So I hope to have you back again.
Sure, man. I'd be glad to be here.
And we'll figure out an equally great topic to do.
That's going to be tough.
That's going to be tough. So, to all you listeners out there, thank you for once again joining us for Fave Five From Fans. Be sure to stick around and watch for us. Every 2 weeks, we'll have a new episode, and we may be dropping stuff here and there. So, make sure to check our feed, save it, and come back as often as you like. This is Hulk Boy from Hollywood, signing off.